All right. Darlene, I see your face.
Yeah, I'm having to do this in a different room, so I'm trying to get the lighting right.
Oh, well, you look beautiful. It's perfect for us.
Oh, well, that's good. Great.
Oh, good morning. Thank you for getting up early.
Yes, it is early, but I am up.
Awesome.
That's great.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to jump in with Darlene. So again, for those of you that just joined, I'm Jen Doro out of YWAM North Cascades. And Amos is my co-host, buddy, partner in crime for the DTS Center for this region here of Western North America. And we were so excited that Darlene was willing to share with us anything that's on her heart. And I just wanted to tell you, Darlene, yesterday, my daughter, she's 2, Jo, she was climbing up on the table, and we have a picture from when you and Lauren came out and prayed for our campus. And she pointed to you and Darlene and she said, "Grandpa, Grandma, Grandpa, Grandma."
Good.
And I thought, how fitting is that, because of the legacy she doesn't even know she's a part of yet in this mission and in our sort of mandate to reach the world, right? The heritage.
There you go. That was easier than going to the.
I'm excited that you are gonna get to spend some time with us, and to every person here. I think right now we represent about 30 different locations, and if my quick math was correct, we're just over 100 people. I think we're like 112. And we're honored that you wanted to share with us, and we're excited. And the floor is yours. Take it away.
Thank you. I understand you have quite a day planned. I was looking over the schedule, and I was with Danny Lehman yesterday, and we were talking about how excited we are and just so pleased to be able to talk with you. I'm wondering how you're all doing during this very difficult season we find ourselves in, like no other season before. And everybody is having their challenges. At the same time, guys, I think when history is written about us as a mission, we will truly look back to 2020 as a breakthrough year. I trust that's your experience, because never have we had an opportunity before to reset, refocus, take a good look at everything that we're doing. And you know, the theme for YWAM is to know God and make him known. And we have been working so hard in these years to make him known. We're sending out teams and receiving teams, and at DTS we're training teams in order to do all of that. And suddenly everything comes to a screeching halt. And it's like God speaking to us and saying, I want you to know God better so you can make him known in a much greater way. It reminds me of the time in the Bible, you know, where the lady who was the widow, and her husband had died, and there was no retirement program, and she is desperate. She's desperately in debt, and they're going to come take her kids. And we have people like that right now. And in some ways, guys, for our various campuses, there's probably not a campus in the whole world of YWAM that hasn't pretty strongly been impacted by the COVID crisis. Many places we were expecting a record number of students, and we never had less students than we have right this moment. Some places we've been able to continue on. Many places we're doing all kinds of things online. But if you remember the word that the prophet gave to the woman, said, "What do you have in your hand?" And she said, "Hardly anything. It's just this little bit of oil in this jar." And he said, "Take that. I want you to hang on to that. But now I want you to go out and get vessels, not a few." And I don't know how much effort she put into getting vessels. I don't know. But I do know for the amount of effort she took, that's the amount of oil that she received. That is the amount of the answer that she received, whatever that effort was. And I believe during this time of COVID crisis, where things have totally changed, we are really getting an opportunity to prepare for the next great wave. We have promises galore coming from God that we are in a time, a season of preparation. And when we think of preparation within the mission, guys, the thing we most think about always for me is DTS. That is the singular vehicle that God called for YWAM to prepare future staff. Every single University of the Nation student is the DTS. And everybody knows I'm enthusiastic about the DTS. And it's because I really understand the total significance. And if you've ever heard me speak to you before about DTS, you'll know I will always say this, that the DTS staff person, the DTS leader, the DTS small group leader, they are the most important people in the mission. I want you to really understand that, because you carry with you all the seed, the vision, the beliefs, the values of the mission. You carry that, and you are the singular person to pass it on. You are, for almost 100% of the people, their first experience in YWAM. Remember, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So whatever you have them have as an experience for YWAM, they believe that's what YWAM is. And this amazing vehicle that God put together for us as YWAM is really quite remarkable. You know, Lauren and I used to travel all over the world. Back in those days, long time ago, when we would be in airports, it was not unusual for us to have somebody come running to us. I'm a YWAMer, I'm a YWAMer. They're maybe 40 years old, you know, and they'll say, you know, when I was 18 years old, I did a DTS in YWAM in Amsterdam. Absolutely changed my life. And guys, this happens over and over again. It was maybe 8 months out of their entire life. But it's so life transforming that it stays within people. And so it's just really, I want to give you a little history and a little bit of where I think we're going with DTS. But I want you to understand this very, very important thing. Some of you would be aware that I am just finishing up a book called Values Matter. Oh, you can't see it, it's backwards, isn't it? It's called Values Matter, the Beliefs and Stories that have shaped you through the mission. And I have been, as I've been writing it, I realized how often it was the reference to the DTS that I was making. And I realized DTS is so much where we live out all of those values. And I want to come back to that in just a few minutes. Trying to watch the clock here because I have a limited amount of time. I know that. So I want us to think in terms of the very beginning of YWAM. So you're all aware of Lauren's vision of the waves. Young people from everywhere, going everywhere, doing new things in new ways where it's needed. And it was wave after wave, always of young people. That is who God's called us to be. So in the very early days when I joined the team with YWAM, and Lauren had started in 1960, and I joined him in 1963. And in those first years when we took out groups of young people. It was mainly evangelism that we did. Now you have to remember that every part of what we did was really controversial. People said young people could not be missionaries. There's no such thing as a short-term missionary. The interdenominational, no, people didn't do things interdenominationally. International, only Westerners were missionaries. And so all of those, and no salaries, just volunteers. Nobody's going to follow that. Nobody's going to do that. And to everybody's astonishment, it happened. So in the first 5 years of YWAM, Lauren and I went anywhere there were kids and said, come go with us. And to our astonishment, and I think everybody else's, they came. And God did remarkable things. And he proved himself over and over and over. And we saw young people who could be trusted. Now, here's just kind of a little interesting side note here, but one I think that's important for you, is that because it was so controversial, and people said, young people, and you're going to have young people living together, boys and girls, and, you know, could that be? And we said, oh, there'll be boys' teams and girls' teams. So we invited some older counselors because we wanted to kind of look right. And guys, God handpicked the worst people for the job that we could have ever had. Seriously. Because there's plenty of people that could have been good at it. None of these people were. And it was a wake-up call to us that when God called us to have youth with a mission, he wanted to empower youth to lead. And, you know, it wasn't until we started with the university that God said that we could now start having the crossroads age DTS person. Now, the crossroads age DTS person is a very important person to us as a YWAM. Their experience, we desperately need. 18-year-olds can't run a university. So it was interesting to me that when God gave us the word to have University of the Nations, he also gave us the word for crossroads. But if any of you are helping run crossroads DTSs, there's a couple of things that you must make clear from the very beginning. When you put out your word for students to come, we are, without a question, an anointed, appointed, called for group of youth with a mission. So if you're my age, I have to be so committed to youth. And I say that we are now starting to have a really active family DTS and crossroads DTS. And whenever I go in to talk to them, I explain to them, hey, always remember, if you're considering staying on with us and we desperately need you, we are youth with a mission. So you will have to know we're always working to empower youth. We're not working to empower you, we're working to empower youth. And you must love young people. You must have a desire to disciple young people. They are desperate for you. They want you. They want you in their input, to give input into their lives. But your mission here is that we're youth with a mission, and we're here to empower youth. That's really, really important, guys. And it's unfair to bring people on that don't have an understanding of that. Now that's a little sidelight for free on all of this. So I told you God allowed us to get the worst counselors possible. And we recognized that that was because youth were to be empowered. So in those first 5 years with YWAM, with young people coming all over the place, it was all about evangelism. When you're doing evangelism, you do have to do mercy ministries. They just go together. You see a need, you fulfill it. But Lauren and I are driving down the freeway somewhere in the US, and he looks at me and he said, Dar, what do you think's wrong with my leadership? I said, I don't know, I thought you're a pretty good leader. he said, well, you know, we're seeing addition. And we did. We had hundreds of young people come and go with us, but nobody's staying on long term. He said, we're seeing addition, but this will never lead to the waves. We've got to see multiplication. And then in a story way too long to tell, Lauren and I had a time of separation, the first time in our 5 years of marriage. And during that time, he went down to New Zealand and I stayed in California. And God met us separately during a time of fasting and prayer and gave us the vision for our first school of evangelism. Now, there were some things God had already spoken to us that is part of the very ethos of what you do in YWAM. Those first times that we took young people out, the Lord spoke to us then that the trust level needed to be high. And if you teach well people how to make wise choices, the majority of people will make wise choices. And you deal with the exceptions. We were not to be led by rules and regulations. And we, as leaders, were always to have a high trust in youth. Now he's talking to us about this fact for multiplication. And he spoke to us that training was the means for multiplication. If we had the time, and if Lauren was teaching you, he would take the time. He would show you chart after chart after chart, showing you where training is and where YWAM staff was. Training, staff, training, staff, training, staff. You are the very key for the multiplication of Youth with a Mission. You hold those keys in your hands, friends. And this is such an important part of who you are and what God's called you to. So we started our first training schools. We started our first school in Switzerland. There were a couple of things that God had already spoken to us strongly. And that was that we could not have teachers who did not live currently in what they taught. And you must always recognize when you bring any teacher in, it can't be just because it's your local pastor and you really like him. Now they can come in and share some things. I don't mean that. But if you have a subject on missions and they haven't involved in missions, there's no impartation of faith. See, it's not just an impartation of knowledge. It's an impartation of the knowledge plus the faith. And I can't teach you strongly from the word about hospitality if I'm not hospitable. I have no authority when I'm teaching you about generosity if I am not generous. We must be living what we teach. And it's one of the greatest keys to what YWAM is. So that was absolutely essential. We also believe that, yeah, and that comes from what Jesus said, to do and then teach. You do it and then you teach it. You have experience and then you do it. And that's where the impartation of faith comes. So in years back with those first teachers, Brother Andrew, who was smuggling Bibles behind Iron Curtain at that time, he would teach us, and the next few weekends we were out trying to do the same thing, walking in that faith. The other thing that does, dear ones, is if you teach and then go out and try it out and you realize you didn't teach it so well, you get a chance to find out, what do we need to reteach? It's a great evaluation tool for us in the teaching part too. So when we started, this was at a time where the hippie movement was alive and said, there is no God. If there ever was a God, he's dead. Communism was saying there is no God as well, which is prevalent then. We had young people, unlike the young people now that we're with, who were more seeking for answers. They were aware they were seeking for answers. Young people today are seeking for answers too. But in that time, people were seeking more actively for answers that made sense to their minds, not just their emotions. And we begin to teach on the character and nature of God. And it was absolutely life-changing. We would go out to university campuses and talk about God and who he was. And those are the days when everybody's out kind of heckling and protesting and talking about some of these things. And you get a few rotten eggs and you get a whole lot of salvations. But you understand that God was giving us answers. And it was from that the curriculum for the DTS was born. We took the essence of, in those days, the courses were much, much longer. Our first school was 14 months long, which I really loved. And then we became pretty well standard for 8 months. And then begin to break down the curriculum in a way so that more people could be involved. In truth, it never occurred to us that people would stop with the DTS. We never thought that. We thought, yes, this is the entry course, but the majority of people would go on to other courses. Hey, and DTS leader, remember, it's your job to let them know how much more there is for them. How well acquainted are you with all the things that the University of the Nations can offer? There's nobody else that's going to tell them. And if you haven't had any experience of taking other University of the Nations courses, it's a little hard for you to be convincing. And I just want to keep encouraging you to develop yourself. You know, you can take 20 years in YWAM to get your degree. You can go on teaching DTS and leading DTS and then take another quarter and do a U of N course and work on developing yourself. But if you haven't taken those courses, get people into your classes that have. That's your role, is to introduce them to the whole. You're introducing them to the world, but you're also introducing them to the university. Be sure that you do that. The other thing God had showed us in the early days that is the very essence of what makes DTS work is this is where we found the gifts and callings for the future of the mission. You know, YWAM's tremendously diverse. And part of that is our whole belief system is not that I just create my vision and I look for young people that fit my vision, but I have a passion for the gifts and callings that are in each and every student that walks through the door. I remember early days, the first time somebody came and this guy told me, he said, you know, I love soccer. I just want to be able to use it for God. I love soccer. And I said, well, did God call you to come here? And he said, yes. And I said, do you feel like God's called you to be a soccer player? I said, he's the one that gave you the physical ability anyway. He said, yeah. And I can remember running to Lauren and saying, Lauren, I think maybe we're supposed to start a sports ministry. Why else would God call this kid that loves soccer to be a missionary in Youth with a Mission? And friends, it's not more complicated than just that. Now, one of my concerns all the time for us is that we have young leaders that have not had too much experience leading the school, and then young staff. That's also our greatest strength. But one of the downsides of it is that you're so involved in your own leadership, you don't look for the leadership that's within your students. And keep working towards that all the time. Who are the students? And the more responsibility you give them, the more they see, wow, I'm a key contributor in this. They couldn't run this place without me. And really, in the early days, it was one of the big secrets to how Youth with a Mission grew. Because many of our schools, it was just Cunningham and Cunningham. We didn't have Are we good?
Yes, you're back.
Am I back? Okay, I don't know what happened here.
No problem. We're good now. We can hear you.
Okay. Are we good?
Yep.
All right. Okay. So I've got to get to my last sentence here. So we know that God wants us to always look for the talent in others. And you want to be committed to that, guys. And you want, if you think, oh, wow, I don't know anything about that kind of thing. I don't have any business background. This kid sounds like he's involved in business. Surely there's somebody on your campus in your ministry location that has that background. Set them up for lunch to be with them, because we're called to send out and have disciples that go out. God wants to use them. Learn to be real talent spotters. Have faith for them. One of my joys, almost all quarters here, I get to be one of the people that welcomes the students. And I'm telling you, it never gets old to me. I feel so honored. As I'm driving up there to the campus, I think, God, who am I going to speak to today? Who is this person? Is it possibly the prime minister of a country that we're helping prepare? Is it somebody that's going to change the education system? Is it that person that'll go to the far-flung place that nobody's brought the gospel before? Who are they? They're actually paying us money to help them for what to be able to learn how to do that. What an amazing privilege. Always remember, it's our wonderful privilege, friends. It is the very key to what God's called us to be. During the year of the 50th anniversary, Lauren and I, as many of you would know, went around the world, 109 different locations, 109 different flights. Not one flight 10 minutes late. This is China, Mongolia, India, Africa. God really had his sovereign power upon us during that time. And everywhere we went, celebrations and wonderful young people. I imagine some of you were at some of those celebrations. But one of the things that constantly came up was, what from people, how could YWAM at 50 years old still be true to who God called them to be? Organizations, they continue doing good things, but many times not the same thing as they're started out to be. And what is the answer? You. DTS. That is the answer, guys. That's what that is. There is no other answer. That's where our beliefs and our values are passed on. So I just want you to fully understand how important what the role is that you do. You aren't just a DTS leader. You're the most important person in this mission. You carry the seeds for our future. Now, a few little practical things that I wanted to just talk about as well. Because I've been working on this book, Values Matter, the stories that have shaped our beliefs and who we are. It'll be out December 1st, so I want you to get it. And as we're going through this, I realize that it's so important. All of our values are so entrenched in what Youth with the Mission is. But I two things. I want you to always, when you're presenting our values, please always present it with our purpose statement, with our beliefs, and our values. All of that should be presented together. And Amos, I'll have Dawn send you a copy so you can send that around. Would you, just in what that format should be? Because see, your values, they can't be presented separate from your beliefs. Because your values only clarify what your beliefs are. So if we don't have our beliefs down strong, friends, then the values don't make sense. So you have to have those connected together. And when we first wrote the values, it never occurred to me people wouldn't connect them to beliefs. because our beliefs were so strong. It just didn't occur to me. But as I've been working on this, I realized how many of our values, DTS leaders are the ones that hold it so closely. And I'm hoping after this time that you'll really relook at those values. But I just want to, because I've been doing this all the time, I just want to reread to you one that you should be the most familiar with, because you are the ones that mostly, and remember these are the values of the whole mission, but you are the ones that carry it. We are youth with a mission. So whatever we say about ourselves with youth, your calling, your appointment is to carry it. But I want to just reread to you Champion Young People, Value 6. And I want you now to think about this totally with your DTS hat on, okay? YWAM is called to champion youth. We believe God has gifted and called young people to spearhead vision and ministry. Second sentence, we believe they've been called to spearhead vision and ministry. We are committed to value, trust, train, support, make space, and release them. So this is why when I remember what I said to you about Crossroads, if you're in a place, guys, where new vision isn't being released by YWAM, you're missing out on some of the anointing by young people. You're missing on some of the anointing why God called us to be. So you gotta be sure that that's happening. Now, as you know, I've been around a really long time, and I certainly have traveled plenty and been on plenty of YWAM bases. And where you don't have an active flow of young people in DTS, you don't have the same life in the place. And this is why. See, we're called to be youth with a mission, and we're called to do these things. And this is your mandate to make sure it happens. And when I don't see people valuing young people, so when you've got your young DTS student on work duty and the work duty supervisor's not being the best discipler, you better go talk to him. Really. They're in the discipleship business too. And part of what we say is that we're to value, trust, train, support, make space, release. So you want to always be sure in everywhere that those young people that you're responsible for, that they're happening. They are not only the church of the future, they are the church of today. We commit to follow where they lead in the will of God. Do you see how about every third word has to do there with releasing, empowering, valuing, support? And you are the ones that do that. And so I just want to tell you that I am so pleased that you said yes to Jesus, to this role. I think training is just about the nicest gift God could ever let any of us be involved in. And the fact that you get to do that, may I encourage you to do it absolutely wholeheartedly. I pray that during this time where we're having a little more time to reflect, I trust that you look at every one of the challenges that we have. And many of us think, are we ever going to get another student? How are we going to do it? Let's be so ready for him. Let's be working on getting the vessels. Let's, I don't know about where you are, but where we're at in Kona, God's just not letting us get away with anything, guys. We're just getting realigned every direction. And we're trying to just lay absolutely everything down and say, God, where are we to be reset? Where are we to be refocused? And all the restrictions that are put on us, we're asking the Lord to help us put on glasses of faith and redemption, So don't waste this time. Relook at how all of how your young people are treated, how you teach them. Maybe on the campus or ministry you're there, you need to get all the staff together and encourage them, whoever's left, to get together. And say, you know, those of you that aren't involved in training, you're part of our informal training. Can I just encourage you how to be, you train too, you're with them many times, as many hours as we are. Let's equip the people. Let's be thinking of new ways to be able to do our jobs better. Let's expect God during this COVID season to give us revelation about outreaches. Let's look at this. Don't waste the time, guys. We want to be able to have this revelation on who God is and how to make him known. And I believe during this time, God's going to freshly anoint us to do that. I know you're going to have a great day getting all kinds of good stuff this day. But I'm just so glad to be able to start with you by encouraging you in your call. It's one of the most important ones we have in the whole of the mission. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Darlene. And thank you for the stewarding and the guiding that you've walked the DTS through. I think all of us are grateful that we get to continue caring for something that has been so well stewarded by the Lord and by leaders before us. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we're going to just take a break. Let Darlene go about her day. We hope you have a great day. Enjoy some sunshine.
Thank you so much. Love being with you.
Yeah. All right, guys, if you need to take a break, use the restroom, get some water, go for it. We're going to take about 15 minutes, and then we're going to jump in with a message from Maureen. If you need Amos or I, we're here. Go ahead and you can shoot us a message in the chat. We are happy to help with whatever you need, but we'll get going in about 15 minutes again.